Direct all correspondence to the appropriate company's website and/or business address. Welcome to the Parenting Connections radio broadcast with Dr. Tyra Hodge. Dr. Hodge is an author, speaker, the founder and president of Parenting Connections, whose mission is to strengthen families. She has been an educator for over 15 years, and Parenting Connections is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Now, let's join Dr. Tyra Hodge for today's radio broadcast.
Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Hey.
I missed everybody the last 2 weeks. First, we had a storm coming in. We didn't know if it was going to hit us or Louisiana. And then last week, my baby girl had a volleyball game at home. And she's like, you're going to make, because she had to get quarantined from her school. And so she had a volleyball game last week. And it was like one of the only ones at home that, so I could go see. And she was like, you're going to go to my game, right? How could you say no to baby girl? And so, but today I have a special show for you. I don't know if you know it or not. This month, October, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I did bring a special guest in. Aunt Crystal, are you there?
I'm
Looks
here.
Like your screen went dark. Let me have you call in. Let's see. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I brought in a guest today to talk about the effects of domestic violence on children as well as adults. There you are. You were going in and out. Can you hear me, Aunt Crystal? Now she's frozen. Okay, so we got these technical difficulties. Probably call her on the phone if we have to. So this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I thought it was very important that we talk about this stuff, because this is not stuff that you hear about out loud all the time. And so when it goes on and it goes on, and it does have lasting effects on kids and as well as families. I'm not even trying to get up her. Here's her number. Will you call her, please? And so we're going to talk. She's going to tell her story about what she endured as a child, and we're going to talk about how it affected her. And I think she has some pointers to give you to be able to detect domestic violence. As a teacher, not that we don't go around looking for that, but in my experience, I've worked with a lot of students that have issues, and some of that have stemmed from domestic violence in different ways. And domestic violence has several faces. It doesn't always look the same. And I'm going to have some more experts come on and this month and tell you what it looks like. Aunt Crystal, you there?
I'm here.
Not yet. We're working on it. And so I'm very excited. She's my aunt, and she has a book that she's working on. And so I'm going to let her talk about that. And so I'm sorry, I'm trying to get her on so we can talk. And so, is she there yet? So one of the things you need to know about domestic violence is that no one is immune to it. And so there are signs that that somebody could have these characteristics, and it's not something that we talk about. And so therefore, it can go hidden, and it affects students or people, adults, in different ways. And because it's one of those silent things that people don't talk about. And so I'm still trying to get Aunt Crystal on the phone. I'm not sure what happened with my technology here. And so I'm going to keep talking until we get it. No. And also, I tell you what, if you want to call in today and talk to me about domestic violence, if you have a show, there you are, and Crystal, he's going to call you. And so if you want to call in, you can call in at 346 314 4119. And so if you want to call in and discuss some of the signs that you know to be domestic violence. I remember studying the cycle of abuse, and we talked about how it has different phases. You have a honeymoon stage, a building stage, but I'm going to have some experts. And as you know, I'm still waiting for them to get her on. Is she on there? All right. And so we're doing some adjustments here to get her on the phone. And so, like I said before, this is Domestic Violence Month. Ready? Are you there, Crystal?
I'm here.
Oh boy. I'm good. And so I'm glad I got you on. This is like the second time I've been on the radio and I've been stumped. And so you're on air, so you have to keep talking. And I was like, well, my talking points are with this person. And so thank you so much for coming to the show and helping me out here.
Yes, ma'am. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Crystal, you have a story to tell, and I was kind of surprised when you told you shared it in a group. Miss Wilson, she does a group of close a network of women, and she also does this sister to sister group, to where women sisters actually come together and talk, your sisters, but then you also do a group of women and discussing hot issues. Is that correct? Or do I have it all wrong?
It's actually, you have it all, it's all right, but it all goes together.
Okay. Well, tell me about that.
It's called Sisters in Life, and it's me and my sister, Carla, one of my sisters, and we talk every week. So I felt like some of the topics that we were talking about were necessary for us as women, and because all of us are going through something, and so I thought it was a great idea to come together and share and just talk like we normally do, but just do it live so other people can participate.
Okay, so I actually joined one of your groups. You invited me in. I was like, I'm gonna go check this out and see what she's talking about on here, because I was seeing you, stroll up on the Facebook quite a bit, and your group kept getting bigger and bigger. So I'm like, I'm gonna see when Chris go peep on her and see what she's doing. And so when I got into the group, I was so shocked, and it was timely too, because I knew I wanted to plan some content for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And to my surprise, in my own family, I didn't even know. I didn't even know that you had been through what you've been through. And so we're always so far apart. You live out in sunny California and I'm in Texas.
I'm in sunny Florida.
Sunny Florida. What did I say? California?
You did.
I wouldn't put that on you. I'm just kidding, y'all. God bless California. So let's talk about, and so before I get started, I want to go ahead and warn the families out there that this content is a little bit sensitive for young listeners. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some time to go ahead and either turn down your radio or make sure that young ears are not in the room, because this content is sensitive this week. And, we don't want to cause any trauma or kids to hear stuff before they need to hear it. And so what is sexual abuse?
Well, child sexual abuse is when someone who is older than a child, like an adult or a teenager, who has inappropriate encounter with a child, a minor, to cause some form of sexual stimulation, whether it be from touching, kissing, fondling, rubbing, oral penetration. It's that's pretty much what it is.
Okay. And so, so do you consider it abuse if it's two children carrying on? And I don't want to go, be graphic about that, but do you consider that abuse?
Absolutely, and definitely depending on the age of the child, and then other concerns or flags should be raised if it's two children. That means they're learned some type of behavior either from an adult. I know most times people want to blame the television, but nowadays predators are very skillful at their actions and
Very.
how they portray perpetrate an action on a child.
Very
So-
skillful. Very, very skillful. California just passed a law that that made it okay for people 10 years. It was either 11, but 10 for sure. 11 or 10 years to where it is now okay for them to engage in sexual activity with minors without consequence if it's consensual. How do you feel about that?
I got to see it to believe it. I
They
can't wrap my
passed
mind
it.
around
It's like for real. They passed it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to research that. Yeah, I'd be violated and highly upset. How can? Yeah.
It's I'm always praying for California. I'm always praying for them, and I don't know, but anyway. So I'm gonna get on your story, and so your story is that you were abused as a child. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. From the age of 7 years old up to the age of 13, I was molested by, at the time, we thought they were relatives, blood relation. We grew up with them and their family. They took on my mom as their child. And at the time, as a child, one of the uncles, we called uncle, was the one that was not only molesting me. I found out later on he had been molesting my sister, two of my cousins that I know of.
Mm. So that's a lot of trauma. That's a lot of stuff for a young person, a child, to have to deal with. And so, I tell teachers all the time that we never know what's happening with the kid. We see this behavior and sometimes we can't get past the behavior to understand what the root cause is. And so, that's difficult in my position when I am that in between, sometimes between the classroom and that student.
If you follow that child along as a teacher, if you follow that child along through grade, say that child has been around a while and they've made good grades, had a good disposition, and then all of a sudden they switch out. Behavior changes, they start acting out, or not doing their work or drifting off. You should ask questions. I know that y'all can't ask for so many questions.
Right.
But I can tell you those are some of the signs. Okay?
Okay.
Or inappropriately touching or inappropriately looking under someone else's clothing. There's a lot of things. What's my goal? When you have adults saying, oh, well, they're at that age, period. No, they're not that curious.
Mm-hmm.
When you are, I can speak about me. When I was a child, sexual activities was not a part of my mindset. The person that was grooming me, instilled those things in my presence. He was putting on pornography, or he would watch movies that just had too much in it, or he would, leave a dirty magazine around. He was grooming me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then he would say, oh, it's okay, you can look at that. And so, of course, as a child, you're going to look at everything. You want to know what it is. And now your mind is going. And so this will have side conversations with you. If you see something or two people kissing or two people doing something that, only grown folks behind closed doors, you know, they're grooming you that way. Then they'll ask you little things like, "You want to touch me?" You know, or "Let me touch you. Let me show you how to make you feel good." You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And then it'll get to the point where it's no part of a child's mind. Okay, something. Well, what can you say
And
when you see
Crystal,
this?
I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and just turn off your computer and just stay on the phone because they're interfering with each other.
Okay.
Just stay on the telephone and just go ahead and shut off your computer.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. How's that? Is that better?
Yes, that's great. Okay, so
Okay.
you were saying this, and I do want to make listeners and viewers still aware that this is sensitive content. So if you have a young child in your midst, you might want to just catch this on a replay, either on Periscope or Facebook or YouTube. This is not content that you want young ears to hear, but it is content that people need to know, because I feel it's important to know some of these signs and maybe how to address them if you see some of these things. Aunt Crystal, did you display any signs in school? I mean, anything? Was there any kind of cry for help? Did you know what was going on? Did you know what was wrong?
At the age of 7, 8, 9, no. I started getting really aware when I was around 10, 11, 12. And then my perpetrator was doing new things. He was peeping Tom and me while I take a bath, and you know what I mean? Or showing up in my room wee hours of the, late night morning when everybody else was sleeping. I got to a point where I was uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when I turned 12 or so, I had talked to a friend who was my age, and she was telling me, something's wrong with that and this, that, and the other. And then my mind started churning. What happened was we had, with one of the uncles, he came and we stayed with them for the summer. And when they were taking us back, my sister broke out and started screaming and crying, "I don't want to go back."
Oh,
and
wow.
He pulled the car over, and then he asked her what was wrong. So it was my sister who had said, what was going on and who the person was and what they were doing to us.
Mm-hmm.
By then I was going on 13. And so when we arrived back to the house, they literally got into a fight in the street. Like my uncle was beating up the other uncle.
Oh,
and
wow.
telling him, that if you touch these kids again, I'll kill you and this, that, and the other. So he kind of laid off of touching us, but he did other things that was just straight up creepy. But nobody called the police and nobody, you know what I'm saying? And then I learned later that my grandmother had literally walked in on him touching my sister, which I didn't learn that until the day you saw the show. That he had been touching my sister and she didn't do anything. She didn't say anything. He screamed at her to shut the door and she shut the door.
Wow.
And, I didn't know that. So it's, it's sad to say, but I had to lay down, when I had my own children, I laid down boundaries for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
To this day, I have an issue seeing a baby or any child sitting on a man's lap. And that includes the boy as well. Because don't think that because most offenders are male, but there are female offenders out there also.
There are. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are. And so I had to lay down the rules when it came to me having kids, because I still, have what they call residual effects of what transpired to me as a child. So Seeing a child sitting on a grown man's lap or in his crotch, I have an issue with that.
Okay. So one thing I do want to do for all the people that are watching this live streams, if you have any questions for Aunt Crystal, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll answer your questions, and I'll tell her your questions. I don't know if she can see it or not. And things didn't go how we planned today with my technology. And so, but the radio station is up, doing good. So okay, so those are the things that you do, just you try to make to make sure that your kids were safe. But ultimately, our experiences sometimes they do make us who we become, or sometimes it has everything to do with it. And
well,
so
I agree, because in my earlier years, as I got older, there was confusion with my sexuality. There was confusion on whether or not I could trust any man. And it was just more simpler to be with, you want to be loved, but it's more simpler to be with a woman because I'm a woman. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And don't get me wrong, I am a Christian, saved, bought by the blood of Jesus. I don't believe in same-sex anything. But that's what God brought me out of.
Right.
And he blessed me with a wonderful husband. But still, in a lot of cases, a lot of people will go to the same sex simply because of the fear of the opposite sex. And they're looking for love, but they, you know what I mean?
Right.
I had an issue. I had a lot of issues, anger management. I had to go to therapy, and really work out my issues, because when I found out that I was pregnant with twins, they initially thought that I was going to have 2 girls, and I literally freaked out.
Wow.
Yeah. I freaked out. Just knowing that I was having a girl, period, just freaked me out. In fact, when I told your Uncle Jackie, when they told us we were having twins, and I mean, I cried so much. He was like, "You're supposed to be happy." No, I was devastated. Like, literally, I was afraid for my child. And it's not that I didn't trust my husband, but it just flashback was like, "No, you're a man, and I don't know what you'll do." You know what I mean? And so I told him, I told him, I said, "If you ever touch my kids, I'll kill you." And he just looked at me like, "What?" And I repeated myself.
Did he know?
Yeah, he knew, but he didn't know the extent of, and he really didn't know until after we got married. Because I just,
because it's not something that comes up in a conversation.
No, it wasn't. It was difficult to talk about, one. And we ended up having that conversation, oddly enough, because when we were consummating our marriage, I had a flashback of the way he had touched me, and I freaked out. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And then I explained to him what had happened to me as a child, and bless his heart. I tell you, he's a great man of God. He really knew how to pray and speak life over me, and he made sure that I got the help that I needed. But it took years before I would let him, touch me in certain ways. And I don't know how he survived, bless his heart.
Those Wilsons are great people.
Yes, awesome man of God. But I had a fear that that my children would be exposed to a predator and me not know. You know what I mean?
Right. And I've always had that fear myself. And so anytime I would hear any shuffling in the house or any movement, I've always been quick to get up to go see what you're doing. No matter what, always checking on my kids, making sure nobody's where they're not supposed to be, or, and because even with all that, sometimes you can get caught slipping, and something can happen and you not know it, and you not be prepared, and and completely change the course of a kid's life.
And then I had to, when it got to the point where I felt like the kids were old enough that they needed to understand, I started explaining to them when they were around 6 or 7, but not in a way that, I would say to an adult, but just letting them know what the difference was between a good touch and a bad touch, and, not to sit on, adult laps. And if you want to hug them, you can, hug them sideways. Or if you want to sit next to them, sit next to them, but not on their lap. Even with their dad, they didn't sit in his lap. I just had I literally was just so crazy. But no, he held them, like if he would hold them, he would hold them in his arms to where they weren't near his private area. And he would hug them, sideways or whatever. But, yeah, it's a lot.
And so, yeah, but I get it. I really do. I get it. And so, I did have some questions that I wanted to ask you, and I was
Sure.
hoping that you had some information on it. So, how common is, the abuse in this type of way, to
Believe
minors?
Believe it or not, every 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before the age of 18.
Wow.
Yeah. 1 in 7 will be girls, and 1 in 25 will be boys.
Mhm.
But it's very common, and this subject is so close to me because not only was I sexually abused, but my siblings and cousins, people that I'm still, now that I've overcome my issues,
Mhm.
I'm still helping family members who are still trying, who are just now, like my sister, she told you, she's 47 and she's just now starting to deal with what had happened to her because her mom went into, straight
Right.
overload to protect your kids, make sure your family's good. And now that they're all grown and, leaving the house, she has to deal with that. And I know that sounds crazy that she's 47 and still trying to deal with
Not
it.
at all. Not at all. And,
Right.
matter of fact, with some of the stuff that I dealt with in the past, and I want to say that I was in, I'm still in my 40s, but, I had to do, my church had some freedom classes. And so I had to go through those freedom classes for some of the things I was dealing with a couple of times. And so, because it does, we bring our experiences with us. And so if we overcome in that area, then we bring that experience of overcoming. But if we defeat it, then we bring all that trash with us. And so I know you've done some research, but are any particular children at risk for being abused in this way?
Adolescents, children who are under the age of 13, not to say that children between the ages of 13 and 17 aren't molested or sexually assaulted, but the ones that are younger.
So adolescent, what age group is that adolescent?
Age group between 12 and 17, or 12 and under, 12 and under.
Okay.
And that's mainly, think about it, children who are under the age of 10, their minds are more easily to be molded.
Right.
The age group is usually between the ages of, from, believe it or not, people have sexually assaulted babies all the way up to the age of 17. But those from babies up to the age of 7 to 8 years old are the most vulnerable.
I wish, and I just wish there was death penalty for that. I really do. I mean, Jesus said, whoever harms one of mine, little ones,
put a millstone around his neck
and toss him into the sea. And so now, and I believe, and I do believe that there is salvation for everybody. It comes with repentance. Lots of repentance.
Sin is sin, and no matter how you look at it.
Right.
But I do believe that the devil is real. Demons are real. Okay. And if we're not saved, and I'm not saying that they don't try to play with your mind, but if we're not really holding on to the cross, them addictions will take you over. And it can be any kind of addiction.
It really can.
It's just one of them. And listen, the truth of the matter is most child sex offenders, abusers are not sex offenders. It's usually somebody that whether it's friend, and 9 times out of 10 it's family that is doing the abuse. And it's because the child is so accessible in the home, and that there's a level of trust when it comes to family.
Right. And, that trust is just shattered, and then, some children may not know any better, or, fear, or.
They don't. And then look at what's shown on TV these days.
Right. And so we just canceled Netflix, about a month ago. We canceled Netflix because it just got out of control. Right now, if your kids are taking phones to school and they're
Mhm.
streaming stuff, while they're sitting in the cafeteria.
Mhm.
They have access to Netflix and these different streaming devices. Guess what they're watching?
What?
The crazy. That's the best way I can say it. They're whatever crazy is on those apps, that's what they're watching. And so we wonder why, our world is getting so deprived, and we've had to have the loss of morals. And so
Yeah. And then people people are getting more bold. I hated the fact that the COVID came,
why?
because a lot of these children that are being sexually abused are not being detected because of, everybody staying at home. So whatever's going on in the house, you know what I mean?
Right. And we do know that those statistics, they were off the chart. Everything rose. The domestic violence rose, and that's why we're having this show today. Domestic violence, alcohol abuse, and the things that come with that. All that rose, and so the quarantine, and the fact that it just ended up lasting forever, and still unconstitutional. We put a lot of children in danger, in harm's way, and
we really have.
And so let's talk about some of the psychological impacts of children that are abused sexually.
Let's see.
One, I know that they're.
You have post-traumatic stress. Because think about it. When somebody has violated you and abused you, you feel like you don't have any control, especially a child,
Right. And
you can wake up with nightmares. It's post-traumatic stress. They can have depression, anxiety, they can have, a lack of ability to, care about adults, or they can hurt other children.
I do remember this one story. And so I've been in education, now we're going on year 16 about, and so I remember this story where I want to say it was the stepdad sneaking into, these sisters' rooms, and so one day they decided, what, enough is enough. Mama ain't doing nothing. That they were going to take care of him. They stabbed him. He still lived, but they were ready for him. And I can't be mad at them.
I saw one recently where the teenager was telling everybody, but nobody was believing her. So she put a camera in her room. She installed a camera in her room, and they got him on video. But I'm like, what about the child who's, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, 8, 9, that don't have the technology skills to do all of that, We just went through a situation to where a person was grooming a child. And we were told that the grandparents, their, reporting doesn't have any significance. If the child goes to a therapist and they tell the therapist, then there's some significance, and it still has to be investigated. But then you got a child who's like
traumatized from having to tell it over and over again.
They're not going to, if you got a child that's intelligent and they say, okay, I done told mama, I done told, grandma, I done told the therapist, and then you have some grown man coming in asking the child, tell us what happened. They're not going to tell you anything.
No, because the shame and the guilt and shame is overpowering. And so, of course, they're not going to say nothing else.
Oh, I did something wrong, or you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, when does the child get protected? Because I can't comprehend, how many kids have to be violated before, once they done told somebody, they're letting you know. And I understand, various circumstances where the parent is at. My sole focus is the child. I could care less about anybody else. The child. And if the child has been violated, or someone was attempting to groom them, by letting them give them massages or touch them in inappropriate places, that's called grooming. and somebody's grooming a child, you don't want to wait until the child has been fully violated before
Right.
you take on what's been said.
Right. I don't know if you've ever heard Joyce Meyer's story. Have you ever listened to her? And she tells it quite often. And so I've been listening to her probably maybe for about 2 years or whatever. I've never really listened, but she comes on in the morning. I had a TV addiction, and so the Lord had been working on that for the last year. So for the last 2 years or whatever, pretty much my TV stays on the Christian channel, mainly. And so I've been watching, so she's been on, and I didn't know that she told her story so vocally and all the time. And so I could see why people are drawn to her, because she tells it, and, tell the truth, shame the devil. And so Hodge Publishing just published a book by a lady named Mandy Doreen, and she recounts her childhood in this first book. Oh my gosh, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it makes you cry, mad, happy, sad, everything in it. And so, and she tells it all, and there's some healing in that. Was there any healing for you in telling your story, or has your story outside of your sister's group? Has your story been told? Is this the first time you're telling it?
No, I've actually told my story a few times. I used to volunteer at the federal prison. Your uncle used to work there for the past 20 years. Okay. And I used to go and tell my story to the women's group where he used to work at when he worked for state. And then we had ministry. And so I've told my story quite a few times. But the difference between now and when I first started telling my story is I didn't cry. I don't cry anymore.
Okay.
Was
there healing in telling it?
Yes, it was healing for me. And it made me, I feel as though it made me be a better person, and it allowed me to speak life to other women who are enduring other types of abuses.
Right, because a lot of times we think that we're the only ones. We think that we're the only ones going through it, and nobody else, and you don't know what to do. And so
I would get that reaction often, and the one thing that they would say was, "You're always smiling, and how do you do that?" And I told them, I said, I forgave. That's the one thing I need to express, if nothing else. I forgave the person that molested us. And I can tell you earnestly that God will avenge for you. He really will.
He will. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord.
And he did. This man died a horrible death. He ended up with some kind of debilitating muscle disease, and he had his wife to call me, and he asked me for forgiveness.
Wow.
And he asked me if I thought he was going to hell, and I had an opportunity to. And the funny thing is, this man was a minister. You hear what I say?
Are you serious?
Yes, ma'am.
Devil in sheep's clothing.
He was a minister, but on his deathbed, he had his wife to call me and ask me for forgiveness. And he cried, and he apologized for what he had done. And then he asked me if I thought he was going to hell. And I told him, I said, let me ask you this. And we just went through, the salvational points of, being saved. Do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? You truly repenting in your heart, ask God for forgiveness. And then the word says that you are saved. So we went through that whole point, and I do believe that he's in heaven today. So,
okay,
all that he did, in the end, he suffered the consequences for his actions, I believe. And in the end, he repented. So,
that's an amazing story right there. It's amazing that you forgave that you forgave. If we don't forgive, then you can't ever move past it, because especially if you're living on hate. Hate is powerful. just as powerful. I'm not going to say just as
Yes,
powerful
it
as
is.
love. Love, Jesus died for us out of love. God gave his only son because of love.
Mhm.
And so, love is way more powerful, but hate
But
is
let me tell
afford
you
to
what
be.
haters do. Let me tell you
Tell me
what
about
holding
it.
a grudge when somebody who's assaulted you will do. It will cause you to lose your salvation. It will cause you not to go to heaven.
Wow.
Nobody, to me, as far as I'm concerned, is worth that. Nobody.
Wow. 70 times 7. That's how many times Jesus said that we're to forgive.
We are, but don't be a fool. Be wise as a serpent and humble as a dove. Wisdom says, pay attention to your surroundings. I don't care who's smiling and joing in your face. I don't care if they're blood or not. Okay. Reality is we are human beings and we can't trust everybody. We have to try people by their spirit.
Right.
Okay. You have to use all your 5 senses plus the 6th one that God has given you, which is the Holy Ghost. And you pay attention to your surroundings and you take care of your children. Observe your children. We know our kids.
Right.
And the sad part is too, you have a lot of children who have been sexually assaulted and a parent knows.
And see, that's the hard the hard thing. Because I'm not so much a child, but I have seen where, young people, I'm talking about over the age of 12, or have made up stuff on people, or family members have, coerced these children to say stuff. Now, I've also seen it where I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in education, and I've also seen to where, like, one side of the family, to make the other side of the family look bad, they would, like, literally assault a child. I've seen it to where they drugged a child to where they would pass up so they could, mess with the child so that the other parent would look like they did it to win in a custody battle. So, I mean, people can be crazy. People can be absolutely insane. And without God, that's where we are. And that's where our nation and world is. And so there has to be repentance. And the saints of God has to pray. Because, what strikes me the most is that man was a minister. That makes me really nervous. That is very unsettling. Very unsettling.
You just have to take the word. Jesus said, everyone that says, Lord, Lord, shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. I don't care if you're standing in the pulpit to the floor. That's why it's important to try the spirit by the spirit so that we can know what's standing before us. We cannot be ruled and weighed by how people, rise and elevate and drop their voice in the pulpit. I could care less what you feel your status is. Your work and how you carry yourself, and I pay attention to the family. I watch the wife. I watch the children. You know if they have any reverence or respect or rule in their house by the way they family act. And I've seen it all too often, that he can be riding and carrying on and everybody love him, except the wife sitting to the curb and the children looking crazy. Now I pay attention to my environment. Pay attention to your environment. We all trying to get to one place, but we still human.
Is there anything that we can do? I mean, because what comes to mind, for years I worked with single parents. And I've heard these stories, these heartbreaking stories, of they brought these men into their lives and that promised they would love them and their children, and then they end up molesting the children, or even, let's take it a step further, that they're abusive. Physically abusive to the children. I mean, we're hearing on the news right now, a dad or stepdad, killing a baby, and
I saw that worked my everlasting nerve. And every part of me wants to be like the rest of the world. String them up, kill them, castrate them, the whole nine. But that's not what God called us to do. So how can we as parents protect our children? Talk to your kids. And see, we want to keep, this world is dangerous. Okay?
It is.
And yes, we have Jesus, but he also gave us 5 senses with the Holy Ghost. That's it. Okay? talk to your children. You don't have to taint their youthful life and make them afraid of everyone, but you can give them the tools that they need to keep their eyes open. And when you start seeing, if you see a person acting a little extra fresh, or if you see somebody touch you a certain way, let them know certain parts of your body should not be touched, even if they're greeting you.
That's right.
You know,
You have
give
to
them the tools that they need so that they can, because you can't really, you can't be there with them 24/7. So what can you do? Give them the tools that they need.
Right.
Talk to your children. Have that conversation with them regularly. Make it a part, just like I make the Bible a part of my life every day and a part of my children and my grandchildren. That talking about touching and all of these different things is a part of their life every day.
Would you have gotten through it without how did you get through all this? How did you, I know you mentioned therapy, but see this stuff, I see it.
Prayer.
I see the effects of this.
Listen, I keep the word of God with me. I pray. I speak life over myself. And I went to a Christian therapist who can not only help me with the tools that they learn from man, but also give me some spiritual content that'll help my soul. And that's the most important. You need somebody who is able to do both. A spiritual counselor. And that works for me. Because I had, for me, I had anger issues. From that, it just caused me to be aggressive and to fight and to, because of what had happened to me as a child. I felt vulnerable as a child. But when I got older, that vulnerability was not going, in my mind, being vulnerable again like that was never going to happen.
So how did you behave in school? Did you have any, from what you remember, did you have any signs as a student?
No, I was an introvert, extrovert. When I'm in school, I'm the life of the party. I can be whoever I need to be. It was like acting. When I went home, I was insecure. I didn't know myself. And I was always on guard.
But even that extrovert, especially if it's a little extra, sometimes that can be a sign as well.
It was a sign. I didn't want anybody to know I felt ashamed. Even as, coming up as a teenager, I still rattled in my mind, like, how could you let this happen to you? You know what I mean? I didn't get therapy until I was an adult with kids and a husband.
Wow.
Yeah. It took that long. But, it took that long. And I had some anger issues. There's a couple of times I could have been locked up for a long time.
Wow. So thank God. Thank God intervened. Thank God for that.
I didn't know how to stop, because in my mind it was just, child, how you say movies influence you. You remember Shaka Zulu?
I kind of.
And his mama in that movie said, never leave an enemy behind for them to rise up against you. And that stayed in my head from that movie. So anytime somebody rolled up on me, especially if it was a man, I'm aiming for arteries. You have main arteries in your inner thighs, in your neck, in your arm, and those are my
She done studied it, y'all. She done studied where. Because the thing is that what it comes down to is your word against theirs. And so,
and that's the sad part too, because when it comes to a child, it's not really their word. It's what you can prove that transpired by a professional, that you can prove from a professional that transpired to a child. And that's why I think it's unfair. Because if a child come and tell you, if the child come and tell someone that this happened to them, they're looking for some kind of traumatic evidence. So if the child's virginity was never burst, or if you got a male child, how you going to explain if he's never really been, penetrated or anything? You know what I mean? So to tell them, look, so-and-so touched me, and then now you got a child going against some grown person. They say they investigate. How you investigate it?
And that investigating can further traumatize a child. And so,
because I'm like, at the end of the day, that's why I said when it comes down to God, you really gonna have to pray, because I trust God to be He did it for me. I know He'll do it for whoever.
And he will. And so let's talk to the women out there. What do you want to say to a woman that may suspect something going on in her own household or within her family? And sometimes you have no clue. You just really have no clue. But something, going on deep inside that you suspect, or the woman that suspects and she feels stuck and trapped. What about her?
First, don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose your head. Because remember, it's the child that's having to really deal with this, and you're on the outside trying to support them. 2, if you know your child, and if you suspect something, ask them, talk to your child. Encourage them first that they are safe and that you are not here to hurt them or allow anyone else to hurt them. And look, I'm going to tell you, my predator said to me, if you say anything, I'm going to hurt your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So reinforce to your child that, no, I'm here to protect you. You're not here to protect me. And if someone did something to you, let me know. Tell me, What a therapist usually does is they have the child to draw out. They'll ask questions and have them to draw out on a picture or color in on a picture. Where you touched? What were you touched at? What did you do? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you have any inclination, call the police.
Let me just say this. So if they do decide to draw it out, that can be a shocking experience, as a behavior interventionist or behavior specialist that I've been in the past. That can be, kind of crazy, interpreting drawings.
But that's their way. Well, when it comes to child psychology, that's those things. Those are some of the tools that they use, because children don't really know how to put into words what was done to them, and then they don't really know how to express it without feeling as though they did something wrong.
Right.
And I'm telling you because I know, because right now we're dealing with that same thing, here in our immediate family. Mm-hmm. And I thank God nothing transpired, but I do believe that the person was trying to groom her. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go from head to toe to the side to support that child.
Yes.
I don't care what nobody else says or do. I'm there 24/7, whatever I need to do to support that child.
And so, and if you're feeling this way or you're in a situation like this, get out. There are organizations out there that'll help.
Yes. If you are teenagers,
out, because you got to protect that child. You have to protect the child.
I agree.
So one of my biggest things as a parent, dealing with my past bad behavior or whatever, one of the things I just didn't want to mess up my kids. I saw with the first two, me trying to get myself straight and dealing with on my own mess, that I had to get it right within myself so I didn't mess them up. So, we bring it all down to, I get to my baby, the baby girl, which is 15 now. And so it got to the point to where I'd ask her, hey, and she would stop me. No, mama, nobody's to touch me. And I would let you know if they did. And so I think I've overdone it. I overdone it a little bit. And so Nicole was,
my mom was in the street and doing her own thing. And we didn't tell her what happened to us until we were in our mid-30s.
Wow. And so was she shocked?
She was very shocked. And then she was angry. And then she wanted to hurt somebody.
Was he dead by then?
Well, he was way dead by then. He died when I was in my 20s. But like I told my mom, I said at the end of the day, it's not her fault. You only have the tools to work with what you had before you. Mm-hmm. She did. Mm-hmm. I'll say for her. For me, I wanted to learn and observe good relationships and good family and how they raise their kids, and so that I can do the same. Because she wasn't able to give us those tools.
I had to pick up a book when it came to parenting. I had to go to some elders or women in the church, older women, and ask for their opinions or, asking. And so I sought out help because if not, my older two, who are just wonderful kids, and I am so proud of both of them. One of them's in the Navy, and one of them just went and signed herself up for college. She has 2 children, and I'm so proud. We have about 58 seconds left. But, I had to seek help. Children don't come with a book. And one of my quotes is that because they don't come one, sometimes you have to go buy one. And I'm working on writing one. And so also before we close, you're working on a book right now. Tell us about your book, the name of your book.
It's called Pick Something Out the Wind. And my mother and I did this book together. It was a question and answer thing that I did with her. She always said that, it's some things that I can't tell you, but I can tell you something. And she's comical. My mom is one of them cutter boxes, but she is so comical when it comes to life. So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
Okay. And so, 14 seconds. Leave the people with a good word.
Stay focused on the Lord, love your babies, and give them the best life that they deserve. Keep your eyes out on the world and keep God first.
All right. It was a good Tuesday.
It was. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See y'all next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Parenting Connections radio broadcast with Dr. Tyra Hodge. We hope something was said to enlighten and strengthen you and your family. If you have questions, you may reach Parenting Connections via email at info@parentingconnections.net. Join Dr. Tyra Hodge next week for another powerful broadcast. You're listening to Rhema Gospel Radio.